Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Hope you're all fit and well. Hopefully you can hear me. We had a few problems with the audio yesterday. I was going to make sure that I'm broadcasting. It looks like I am. If everybody can hear me, please let me know. I'm going to go through the chat very, very quickly. Going to say good morning to Caveman982 over on Instagram. Elliot Love's there as well. Shane Walker is over there as well. Who was first off the mark? Dan Cullen was here at 9:59 rather, saying good morning, chappies. Not far behind him was Chris Ford. Morning, Dan and gang. Let's have a look. Who else do we have here? Ken Hatter is here, basking in the Welsh sunshine. I'm fairly sure I saw Marky Mark Whiting here somewhere. There's Mark, and there is Mark. There's Jim. Good. I'm coming through loud and clear. Yeah, what's a weekend indeed? Another day in paradise. Same shit, different day. Isn't that just about the size of the world at the moment? Couple of things. I'm wearing a John Deere hat today for reasons that will become clear in a little bit of in a couple of minutes. Biarka Tantan is back with us again over on Instagram. Good morning. Thank you very much indeed for being here. And Alexis Trake is there over there as well. Loads of people over on Instagram. Anyway, do you remember a couple of months ago we reported on this anti-dumping of Chinese excavators? JCB had instigated an inquiry by the UK government, basically claiming that a lot of people or a lot of Chinese equipment manufacturers were selling their machines too cheaply here in the UK. Obviously, we know who the Chinese manufacturers are: Sany, Sunwood, XCMG, Lugong. We know all of that. They've caught somebody else in the net. I didn't see this coming. To say very quickly, the mystery machine, which we haven't shown you yet, is not a Cat D6. And morning, Steve. Love the cat. Thank you very much. As I say, I'm wearing it for a reason. You'll see it in a moment. But let me show you just very quickly this. This is from a Construction Index this morning. And apparently, the Chinese-built Caterpillar excavators are now on the list of companies facing tariffs here in the UK. Now, I must admit, I don't watch these things maybe as closely as I should. But excavators between 11 and 80 tons that Caterpillar makes in China will now be subjected to tariffs, just like other Chinese excavators, although the tariffs have now been reduced. Lots and lots of stuff to go through here. The tariff proposal followed an investigation of the market requested by JCB, who had complained to the UK government that Chinese manufacturers were dumping their machines in the UK. Chinese manufacturers who cooperated with the investigation negotiated lower rates: 33% for Sany, 59% for Lugong, 56.24% for XCMG, and 56.24% for Sunwood. Everyone else is up to 83.5%. And yes, apparently, these Caterpillar excavators, which are possibly facing tariffs of 18.81%. These are made by Caterpillar. I'm going to take a wild stab at this. Zhuzhou. I don't know how you pronounce that. I can barely order prawn crackers, to be honest. But yeah, Caterpillar Zhuzhou apparently makes excavators that are sold here in the UK, and they will now be subject to tariffs. Now, my thought here, and I'm doing this out loud, so please feel free to drop in. One of the things that I was thinking about the Chinese tariffs, as we all know, when the Chinese manufacturers first made landfall here, they did so at very, very low prices. Are Caterpillar Zhuzhou, please forgive my pronunciation, were they selling cheaply in the first place? I'm not aware. I'm not aware of Caterpillar cutting the price because some of its equipment is manufactured over in China. So, while the tariffs placed on Lugong, Sany, XCMG, Sunwood, and all the others probably bring them into line with Volvo, Liebherr, and so on, does that not make Caterpillar, even though they're Chinese built, they've still got the Caterpillar badge on them, does that not make them way more expensive? Yeah, interesting times, huh? Let me take that away. Steve says, I did have that cap. My dog ate it. Yeah, dogs for you. Gary Muirhead has just joined us. Morning, Gary. Happy Friday, everyone. And Chris Ford, is that not price fixing? Well, it is, isn't it? I think, and where I find this one a slightly strange one is, I thought that one of the concerns was that some of the Chinese manufacturers are basically being propped up or co-funded by the Chinese state government. In other words, they basically have a bottomless pit of money. Caterpillar is not that, is it? Caterpillar is Caterpillar. It's it seems to me like they've cast a wide net, and lo and behold, they've caught somebody who, yes, they're building in China, but are they actually Chinese? Love to get your thoughts on all of that. Anyway, we've got loads to get through. I say that at the same time every day. We do have Mystery Machine. We have a question of the day. So without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this damn show on the damn road. Stand by your beds, people, because Jonathan Duras is in the house. Morning, Jonathan. Good of you to join us. It is Friday, the 16th of May. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming. And in today's show, we're moving mountains with Thiess Mining and Caterpillar. Dynaset is set to clean up. John Deere, if the hat fits, which is why I'm wearing this. And in our latest look back to Bauma 2025, we're going to be in the outside area with Komatsu, should I say. And we're going to be looking at the biggest machine at the entire show. Plus, in my morning monologue today, the illusion of competence. I think you can probably figure out where that's heading. I will do the Mystery Machine in just a moment, but I do have a few bits and pieces to address here. Chris Ford says, now, if you're a concrete manufacturer or a demolition company conspired amongst yourselves to set a price for your goods or services, would you not be fined for doing so? Yeah. Well, I say yeah. Ultimately, you might, assuming you got caught, but I see where you're going with that. Ken Hatch says maybe Cat will start making small minis in Leicester again. Up at Desmond, yeah, they may well do. I don't know. It's, as I say, I didn't see that one coming. Now, and let's be clear here, there are lots of manufacturers that choose to start building in China. I think the original idea of building in China was probably to open up the Chinese market to themselves. You know, go over there, either set up a factory or form some sort of joint venture over in China, build your machines there, and then basically sell a Chinese-built excavator or Chinese-built machine to... Oh, Chris, you caught me off the guard there. Yeah, you've gone. You can basically sell a Chinese man. It's like Komatsu here in the UK, and that basically stems back to the anti-dumping against the Japanese manufacturers back in the late 80s. They set it up. They set up the Berkeley factory in an old Caterpillar factory. Interestingly enough, basically to overcome this dumping thing. So they were basically selling a British-built excavator to Britain. A lot of manufacturers have done exactly the same in China. They have a Chinese factory for selling to Chinese customers. But some, clearly, Caterpillar being one of them, are actually shipping some of those machines here. Interesting times. Nigel Williams says, good morning. Dan says, I wonder if a few manufacturers will move here and build UK spec machines. I would be quite surprised if they chose the UK as their manufacturing base. When you look at we've got but we have got Caterpillar here, but we've also got Komatsu here. But when you think about where Devellon is over in the Belgian Dutch border, Hyundai, Belgian-Dutch border. Not that this account applies, but Bobcat is over in the Czech Republic. It seems to me like Central Europe would be a more economical place. Plus, it opens up, bearing in mind we are post-Brexit, getting goods and materials and stuff in and out not as easy as it used to be. So, could we see European manufacture? I'd be surprised if we didn't. Steve says, was that T-shirt from back in the day when you had your sentence? It is a bit, isn't it? Yeah, I was going for more Jean-Paul Gaultier, and I look more like a prisoner. Yes, Mystery Machine. Let me show you the Mystery Machine very quickly after this. Right, here is our Mystery Machine, and I can tell you right away, it is neither a Bauma nor is it a Cat D6. Just going to throw that out there just to save you all trying those. Chris Ford, I'll leave that up, but while I'm talking to Chris here, the Chinese Cat isn't the cheapest machine on the market. Other manufacturers can and will match the price. So who's screwing who? Good point. I thought Cat excavators made in Japan at Mitsubishi. Probably made under license now in China. I would imagine so. Yeah. Listen, we're talking about global manufacturing companies here, and they will go where the cheapest source of manufacturing is. I don't blame them for that at all. And if you go back 15, 20 years when China was absolutely booming as a market itself, it made a lot of sense, I would imagine, to set up manufacturing facilities there. I guess it also makes sense for them to ship those machines over here as well. I wonder if it will still. We shall see. Now, I am going to go back to the Mystery Machine because this has amused me enormously. Chris Ford is going for the Bobcat E85. You couldn't be further. You couldn't be further from what it actually is if you tried. Let me show you a little bit more. There you are. That narrows it down a little bit, I think. I'll take that away and quickly remind you of our question of the day, which is this. Yeah, very, very simply. What is the worst, most ridiculous excuse you've ever heard somebody give for being either late or for reasons that they didn't turn up? And now I do have one that I heard back in the days when I worked with people, when I was allowed to work with people. We had a guy turn up. He was probably an hour and a half late. Didn't phone, just pitched up late. And, boss took him to one side. Where the bloody hell were you? Oh, stressful morning. My dog, while we were out on a walk, picked up a stick and he chewed it up in the hall. And there was such a mess that I'm an hour and a half late. Chewed up stick. Can anyone beat chewed up stick? Reasons for being late. Let me go over into the chat. Do we have here? Chris Ford, this is one that threw me off earlier. My father died last night for the third time. Yeah. I'm pretty sure back when I was at school, I do remember people either going missing or being late with their homework, and it was their grandmother had died, and I'd been with them at school, and they must have lost 6 or 7 grandmothers in that time. Ken Hatcher said some guy said he was late because he had a fly in the fuel filter. See, there's a bit of me that quite admires the creativity on that. Nigel Williams says, I've heard them all. Traffic, punctures, dead people who have died 3 times or more. Best one was a guy who had his newborn shit all over him before he was leaving for work. Yeah, although that is a real thing. I'm not going to say which of my children did it, but I can tell you that it's absolutely happened. Dan Cullen, there was a cat sitting on the roof of my car. It was an actual cat telehandler. Well done. Chris Saul, going back to the Chinese thing, how many components in an excavator are made in China? It used to be Hong Kong, Taiwan, foreign, etc. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fallout from Chinese manufacturer we talked about this yesterday very briefly, where we had that ship stuck up. Was it the Suez Canal? Was it the Panama Canal? It was stuck up a canal somewhere or other, and it basically stopped the movement of electronic components. Yeah, really did affect everyone, JCB included. Lots and lots of people hit by that. Going back to, well, I can tell you, we don't need to go back to the mystery machine very much because somebody's already got the right answer. That's what you've got. As I say, Chris Ford went for the Bobcat E85. Dan went for the Mammoth MP13. He went for the MP12 Pro. It's not one of those. Nigel Williams went for the Cat 963 track loader. However, our winner, based on two tiny little snippets of image, Jonathan Duras, says it's the Cat 395 face shovel, which was only launched a few weeks ago at Bauma, and he's absolutely on the money. Let me show you just to prove that he was on the money. There we are. The Cat 395 FS for face shovel. So JD, 3 points. Let me have a very quick recap. What do we got? 1, 2, 3. Dan's got 3 wins this time around. Jonathan Duras has, well, Dan's actually got 4 because he was a joint in one of them. Jonathan Duras is in second place actually with 3 wins as well. So yeah, hotting up. I've got a couple. Chris Ford has got a couple. It's tight at the top. Tight at the top. So mystery machine is done. Poor excuses for being late, poor excuses for not turning up at all. Love to hear all of those when they come in. But we are going mining in just a moment, immediately after a smidgen of this. I won't bother doing an introduction on this one because the bloke that you see first of all explains precisely why they filmed it.
We're here at Lake Vermont today to celebrate 10 million cubic metres pushed autonomously. We started our journey with the SATS dozers back in 2020 with the vision of, bringing people together with technology to drive sustainable change. At Thiess, we're proud to be a leading services provider in autonomy, bringing autonomy to our clients. So 10 million cubic metres is quite a large volume. That really equates to 4,000 Olympic swimming pools is what we've pushed over the last 3 years with our semi-autonomous dozers. That's quite a substantial volume.
Thiess, being a mining services provider in the region, often work very closely with Caterpillar to help differentiate themselves across this space in the mining sector, and they want to be seen as leaders in the technology space.
We've got one of the largest deployments of the semi-autonomous tractor fleets here at Lake Vermont. It's extremely proud for us to be part of that and have that functioning at such a high level.
What we see with the SATS dozers is typically our utilisation goes up somewhere in the order of 20 to 25%. So we're getting more work hours per day. And that's because we've got seamless shift changes, very few crib breaks. They're really good at following a repeatable process, so loading the blade, pushing and dumping. What this translates to is a reduction in our unit costs. Typically, in most of our autonomy programs, we see somewhere in the order of 10%.
I think it's been a great day to celebrate the 10 million bank cubic meters moved by the autonomous dozers. Part of our vision as a business is to grow in the autonomy space, focus on technology to enhance operations and efficiencies for ourselves and for our clients. And we are seeing much more of this come to the fold with clients looking for additional services, things to support their ESG credentials and get more efficiencies from the assets. Having the ability to autonomously run dozers of this instance or drills or trucks allows us to get good utilization and providing a value service back to our clients.
$10 million tons in 3 years. Steve Williamson says, sign me up. Now, is that sign you up because you quite fancy working in Australia? Is that sign me up because you quite fancy operating one of those big dozers? Or is it sign me up because autonomy does most of the work? Any of those is a good excuse. I wouldn't blame you at all. Dan Cullen saying congratulations to Jonathan on the Mystery Machine victory. Dan says, a guy had an argument with his missus and she knitted him, rammed an item where the sun don't shine. Next day, he was bright as rain. After that, he was told, keep your ass face to floor. Nick, I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure there's something good going on there. Nigel Williams says, great achievement that. No taxes paid, no holiday cover, no late or no show excuses. Impressed, but disheartened at the same time. Yeah. Sign me up to the future. Don't blame you at all. Right, okay. So we're cleaning up the streets in a second with the fine folks at Dynaset. Back after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Steve says Dan's been drinking. I think it's trying to type as quickly as you can between loads. I think that's the absolute point there. Nigel says, I'm confused. Autonomous or remote piloted? They are SAT, so they're semi-autonomous. So I think there's a bit of both going on. Obviously, you can see that they are actually sort of remotely controlled from that control center, but I think they actually get people behind the levers as well. So yeah, semi-autonomous. And Dan Cunt says she nutted him. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. It's the ultimate weapon, that, isn't it? I've only ever dug that out of the toolbox once or twice in my life, but it does now get people's attention. Anywho, yes, Dynaset, who make lots of really interesting things. I like this. I'd quite like one of these for my back garden. Back garden's not big enough to justify, but have a look. Smart, right? Dan says, I'd have that in my kitchen as a dishwasher on wheels. You must have a big kitchen. Yeah, fantastic. And as Steve has just said, Dynaset do indeed make some awesome products. They're one of those, they kind of lurk in the background. Like you go to a Bauma, they're there in force, and they've got all these fancy things on their stand. And it's only when you get up and have a proper look at them, it's like, wow, there's some really clever stuff here. One of the other things that I find interesting is the number of times that you see a product. The one that always sticks in my head was the Arden Jet, which is a water or dust suppression system on the Arden attachments. And it's very, very good. It switches itself off. So it only actually squirts water when the attachment is biting concrete. The rest of the time it's off, so it can save water. And I remember thinking, well, that's a very smart idea. When I spoke to the fine folks at Dynaset, I said, I've just seen the Arden Jet. That's a fantastic product. They went, it should be. It's ours. We make that. They do. There you are. Dan says, good looking tool. Yeah, good looking tool. We're going to be slight detour in a second. We are talking hats. Back after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
So, on the upside, Steve Williamson says the built-in pressure washer for an excavator looks great. I agree. Nigel, and I don't want to dwell on this because it's a very unpleasant subject, but he says, need one of those to wash the stench of stale piss off the parking stops on most major A and B roads. What is it? What is it about that activity? Like you get in a lift. I don't mean like a lift in an office block, but you get in a lift in some tower blocks, reek of piss. the one that I encountered most recently when it picked my wife and daughter up from the airport, the stairs up to the arrivals in the car park, the arrivals area at Gatwick Airport, absolutely reeked. Bearing in mind, the car park is here, and over here, 100 yards away, is an operational airport that has got wall-to-wall toilets. You can't go that far. You've got to do it in the stairwell. Really? Do you have that little control of your bladder? Oh, I don't know. What have we got here? Hats. Did I hear you right? You did hear me right. We're talking, well, not just any hat. We're talking probably the hat.
I've been worn by celebrities, athletes, and world leaders, but I've always felt most comfortable up here with the folks that made me who I am. I'm right at home out here on the land, because this is where I come from. I've been showing up here for nearly 200 years, and I can't wait to see what's next.
Hats off to the future.
John Deere plans to invest nearly $20 billion in America over the next 10 years.
Now, several things. First off, to do this very quickly, I had one of those green hats. I've lost it. I've no idea where it went. That's something that needs to be put right. But that talk of investment in America, I wonder if that was prompted by the ongoing row between John Deere and a certain Mr. Trump. Because John Deere, as we've discussed previously, they've actually outsourced some of their manufacture to Mexico. Not much, but a bit. And they are therefore subject to tariffs. In other words, the big orange fella is going after one of America's best known and most loved brands. Can you imagine doing that here? Can you imagine the UK government deciding to impose tariffs on JCB? What are you thinking of? One of the last bastions of manufacturing in your country, and you're going to penalise them? Do you really think that's a good idea? Yeah. Steve says, I follow that young boy on social media. His model collection is awesome. Didn't recognise him, but I'll take your word for it. Gary Muirhead, going back to the question today. I won't be in work today because we had a death in the family overnight, and he's got to pick out a suit for the funeral. And he said, I really loved the goldfish. I should have read that before I got all the way through it, but hey, well done indeed. Dan Cullen says, must go back to the grind. Have a great weekend, guys. Stay safe. See you on the flip side on Monday. And he's working on Saturday and Sunday. Good luck. I'm not. I'm going to take a well-deserved. I woke up feeling absolutely cream cracker this morning, so I'm actually going to take a proper weekend. We've got one final thing to show you, which is we go back to Bauma with Komatsu after this, and then it'll be morning monologue time. Now, one of the first stand tours that we showed you here on the Breakfast Show was Komatsu, but we only showed you what they had indoors. This time, we're going outdoors. Yeah, we've already taken you around the indoor area for Komatsu, but they've got an awful lot more outside. Obviously, you can see the dozer behind me. I can't even keep the next one secret, so I'm going to spin the camera around and you can see it in all its glory. Okay, I've had to put the camera on super wide setting to get all of this in. There's the HD 605 rigid truck in the background there. Obviously got the 390 HRD high reach demolition machine, complete with the boom, the attachments and the K100 quick change system. But as I say, can't keep it secret any longer. The PC 7000 all electric, biggest machine here. An absolute beast. I'm here early morning. I'm just going to check. Where are we? It's about 8:30 in the morning at the time I'm recording this. The show doesn't open for another half an hour. But Komatsu are actually holding presentations and doing demonstrations every few hours or so. It's quiet at the moment, but give it a couple of hours when the first demonstration takes place, and this place will be heaving with people. It's actually hard to get all of that machine in. Look at the size of that. And just to give you a sense of scale, you can see the steps there. In order to get into the cab, you've actually got to go up 3 stories. I think you can probably see that there. Yeah, 3 stories to get to the cab. Phenomenal piece of kit. Bit of a blank wall here, obviously Komatsu branded, but I'm going to go around the corner here very quickly to the PC 950 LC. And can't ignore, first and foremost, the wheel loader. But there is the PC 220 LC, which, as I've already said on the indoor video, I think this is going to be one of the big stars of the show. And it was. Dan Cullen picking that up. Yeah, look at the size of the 390 to the 7000. Steve has actually got a video and a photograph that shows the size difference between the two, and it is astonishing. And he also says, would love to get up on that. Oh wait, yes, he did go up that. I was with him. That's one sizable beast, says Jonathan Duras. Now, going back to Nigel Williams, great idea. I'm assuming he is siding with the big orange fella here on tariffs against John Deere. American people need jobs. Economies need employment. A consumer-based economy runs out of money eventually. Yeah. However, you are going to tell your farming base and your construction base, but your farming base, you know, those John Deere machines that you know and love, those tractors and the combine harvesters and other agricultural equipment that I don't understand, you know, all of those. Yeah, we've just decided to make those much more expensive. And if they make them more expensive, will American farmers decide, well, actually, I'll go elsewhere for my tractors? And what is the impact of that on John Deere? Do they start to close factories? Do they send more of their manufacturing overseas? It's not as straightforward. Not as straightforward at all. Chris Ward, sorry gang, got to go. Catch you all next week. Have a good weekend. Yeah, you too, my friend. Dan Cullen says 3 stories. That's an animal. It really is. Yeah, you actually feel it in your calves when you get up to the cab. It is that tall. Really is. Anyway, people, that is pretty much it for the main part of this morning show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like into my final morning monologue of this week. If you can't stick around for that, do please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Hope to see you again very soon. Obviously, no show tomorrow, but I will be back on Monday. If you do have the time and the inclination, I shall return immediately after this. Sometimes the signs are subtle. A site dumper's skip distorted by repeated whacks from an excavator bucket, gouges in the machine's counterweight, an excavator stood on tiptoes reaching too far or lifting too great a load. Sometimes the signs are less subtle. A machine lying on its side in a basement or upended in a trench, or, in extreme cases, on fire. Subtle or otherwise, such incidents are entirely avoidable, or at least they are avoidable in the hands of a truly competent machine operator. And there's the rub. We have an industry filled with competent operators. They all have little plastic cards to confirm their competence. But not all competent operators are created equal. There are some, time served, who have paid their dues on site. They've earned their stripes. They've been there, done it, and they've got the T-shirt. Their qualifications come in the form of hours worked, tasks completed, and challenges overcome. And then there's the others. They brandish their plastic colour-coded cards, CSCS, CPCS, NPAWS, CCDO, each one claiming to be proof of competence, evidence that they know what they're doing, that they're qualified, and that they're safe. But here's the ugly truth that we're all supposed to ignore. Those cards do not prove competence. They prove you sat in a classroom. They prove you ticked the right box on a multiple choice test. They prove you paid your money and waited your turn. But do they prove you're ready for the real world? A life or death situation on site? Not even close. Real competence isn't handed to you after a training course. It's earned the hard way, in the freezing rain, in the dust and the diesel, when the machine cuts out mid-shift, or when someone makes a mistake and you're the last line of defense between an incident and a fatality. You can't simulate that in a PowerPoint presentation. You've all worked alongside someone who's fully carded but can't reverse a dumper without taking out a fence. You've seen guys freeze up mid-task or shrug off procedures they clearly never understood to begin with. But hey, their card was in date, so they must have been competent, right? This isn't just a criticism, it's a crisis, because the industry's obsession with cars isn't about safety. It's about liability. It's about box ticking. And most of all, it's about money. Let's not pretend otherwise. The entire card scheme system is a racket. Training providers, test centres and card issuers aren't there to develop skills. They're there to move people through the system. It's a conveyor belt, not a classroom. You pay, you sit, you pass, and you get your little plastic badge of honour. And it never stops. Cards expire because apparently, unlike your driving licence, your knowledge of safe operation, machine handling, or demolition protocol mysteriously vanishes over time. You don't forget how to ride a bike, but apparently you can forget how to use an excavator if you haven't paid for a refresher. Of course, that refresher might just be another half day in a porter cabin, staring at a whiteboard while someone reads bullet points from a script. Then it's another test and another check. And who's footing the bill for all this? Increasingly, it's the workers, especially now that so many have been pushed into so-called self-employment, a convenient status for big firms that want flexibility without responsibility. You're not an employee, they say. You're your own boss. That means you pay for your training. You pay for your cards. You take the hit if you can't get on site because the card has expired. Meanwhile, the training companies and card schemes rake in millions. And don't even get me started on the death of grandfather rights. For decades, the industry relied on the knowledge and experience of its longest-serving workers, men and women who knew their trade inside out. But with one policy change, those veterans were told, sorry, unless you pass this test, we can't recognise your skills. Imagine telling a man or a woman with 35 years behind the levers of an excavator, hundreds of successful jobs under his belt, that he needs to prove that he can still do the job he's been doing every single day. It's ridiculous. It's insulting. And worst of all, it's pushed out some of the best and most experienced operators we have, all in the name of standards. Here's the uncomfortable question that no one in a boardroom wants to ask. Are these schemes actually making sites safer or just more compliant? Because there is a difference. Safety is a culture. Safety is people looking out for each other. It's taking the time to do it right, even under pressure. It's the seasoned machine operator who spots a trench wall collapse before anyone else. It's the labourer who's seen enough to know when something's off and speaks up. Compliance, on the other hand, is paperwork. It's checklists. It's plastic cards and digital records that prove you were competent, even if you weren't. It protects companies from lawsuits and lets them tick the box that says, we did our part. And that's not about safety. That's about covering your ass. And the workers know it. They're frustrated. They're fed up. They've played this game for years, shelling out money and time for cards that don't reflect their ability, only their willingness to jump through hoops. Many of them feel insulted, disrespected, treated like numbers, not professionals. As an industry, we need to stop pretending these cards are the answer. Yes, we need training. Yes, we need clear standards. No one is saying otherwise. But real-world site-based assessments should be the foundation, not classroom theory. Let experienced supervisors and peers play a role in validating someone's capabilities. If someone's working safely and effectively on real jobs under real pressure for years, that should carry more weight than a one-size-fits-all exam. The problem with plastic proof is that it fades, sometimes literally, but always figuratively. It can't show good judgment. It can't measure calm under pressure. It can't tell you whether someone is the kind of operator others trust to get the job done when things go wrong. Competence is more than compliance. It's character, it's consistency, it's confidence earned over time. And we need to respect that, not replace it with plastic tokens and empty promises. We've allowed laminated cards to become the industry's golden ticket, a shield for liability, a substitute for actual skill. We pretend they guarantee safety, but anyone who spent more than 5 minutes on a real site knows better. Competence isn't something you renew every 5 years. It's something you build, job by job, mistake by mistake, over years of dust, danger, and most of all, doing. Until we stop worshipping cards and start respecting lived experience, we'll keep sending operators onto site, not as competent workers, but as ticking time bombs. Feel free to chime in whenever you see fit. There is things are happening in the chat. Let's have a look. That's going back to the PC 7000. You feel it when you're walking inside. Yeah, when you can walk. I think there were 3, possibly 4 of us in the engine room of the PC 7000 at one point. 4 people, and the cab. I think Steve was sat in the seat, Fred was stood behind him, and I was stood behind Fred. The cab is that big, 3 people, not a problem at all. Nigel Williams, not a single machine driver on site meets IR35 guidelines. Please don't think that this is anti-young person, because it isn't. There are some young people who can take to this job pretty damn well. Joe Burrell Construction has just said good morning and facts. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, there are some people that take to this very, very quickly, and they quickly become a trusted member of a team. But bearing in mind what is at stake on a demolition or a construction site, it's actual human lives. And I don't spend as much time on site as I used to. But when I walk on site, I've got my hard hat on, I've got my boots on, I've got my high vis on. I am secretly hoping that the people that are driving the machines that are buzzing around beside me are properly competent, not plastic card competent. I'll give you another example, and this is a failing in another area. So I took my driving test. I took it quite late because my best friend drove. I didn't actually learn to drive until I was about 21, 22, but passed my test, and I was working on a magazine at the time, and was handed the keys to a company car. Now, I had done my driving instruction around the streets of Sutton and Wallington, places like that, close to where I live now. And I'd done my test along the streets of Wallington as well. So, streets and back alleys and stuff like that. And then somebody said to me, there you go, your company car, your first job, you're going up to Staffordshire. Never driven on a motorway before. And somebody thought that was a good idea. Turns out it was absolutely fine. I got there and back, held the steering wheel probably a little bit harder than most people do, but it wasn't a problem. But maybe that's it. Well, for one thing, it probably suggests that the driving test needs to be a little deeper, perhaps. And for all I know, there may be a dual carriageway motorway element to the driving test. Now, it's a long while since I passed mine, but it also makes you question. I'd been given a driving license that said I was good to go, when I quite clearly was not. And that's what we're doing with these competence cards. Even when you get further up the ladder and you're going through the colors of the cards, just because you've got that card and you've done that test, the one above it, doesn't actually mean you are ready for that thing. And I mean, I'm not going to go off on sideways, but let's forget, you've got people out there with spurious cards that have bought them over the internet, or they've got somebody else to sit the test for them. How big a difference is there between somebody holding a spurious card, i.e. one they've bought on the sly, or they've had somebody sit the test for them, and somebody that has basically had a week in a porter cabin? My feeling is there's probably not a lot in it. And I say this every time I talk about cards. If the industry truly believed in the relevance of those cards, why are some of the manufacturers, why are some of the contractors, particularly on Hinkley Point, HS2, why are they insisting on their own test to validate claimed competence? If those cards were actually reliable, if they truly were proof of competence, it would be a license to go anywhere in the UK, possibly overseas as well. Flash your card. Yep, he is clearly the dog's doodahs. Hand him the keys to an excavator and watch him go. But we don't do that. We don't do that. You get to a major project, HS2, Hinkley Point, and probably others besides, and it's you've got a card, that's fine. That's got you on site. Right, now show us what you can do. And if you're good, you stay. If you're not, you don't. What does that tell you? Jim Turner was saying the same thing to a plant training person this morning. The card is not a measure of skill or efficiency. It's no more the moped CBT system. It just means you're just safe enough to be let loose on site, not a skilled operator. Yeah. Now, on that point, if you're safe enough to be let loose on site. So imagine, let's take an excavator as an example. You are safe enough to be let loose on site, but you're not a skilled operator. So are you constantly scanning your surroundings? Are you doing the whole peripheral vision thing to make sure that nobody's creeping up on your blind side and you're about to clout them? Are you clumping the tipper or the dump truck that you're loading into? Are you hovering on the very edge of a pile? Are you teetering on the brink of falling into a trench? All of which you learn over years of doing and feeling and understanding. You don't learn it in a classroom. You don't learn it from a textbook. You learn it from actually being out there and doing it. And we've touched on this before. I'm not an expert. I'm a terrible, terrible operator. It's a mistake to give me the keys to any machine. But I can tell, even as an interested observer, if I go to a demolition site, I can pick out a good operator against a bad one in about 5 minutes flat. And in demolition terms, it tends to be the more methodical they are, the better they are. I realise demolition has a reputation of being wham bam, thank you, man, get the building on the floor as quickly as you can. It's not. It's meticulous. It's picking apart and sitting back and I better take that bit down because that will impact on that bit there, and really choosing your path properly. Exactly the same on construction. An experienced operator will know not only the way to load a truck the most efficiently, so minimum slew on his part, park the tipper or the dumper exactly where they need it to be up above the dumper ideally, so you're not actually raising the boom. We all know this. Listen, I'm preaching to the converted. We all know what that is. You do not in any way learn that in a classroom. And one of the other things, and I will come to you in a moment, Gary, one of the other things that occurred to me with this is that we talked about autonomy yesterday and about the idea of capturing the experience and wisdom of good operators and then making that available to either an autonomous model or a rookie operator. I've lost my train of thought. Where was I going with this? No, completely lost my train of thought. I'll come back. Let me go over to Gary instead. Looking forward to finishing today and heading home because I'm taking my wife out and 14 others for a birthday meal to celebrate her 50th birthday at the end of the month. Happy birthday, Christine, for the end of the month. Are you going Italian, Gary? Are you going Italian? I'd like to think you are. I do know you like your Italian. Yeah, I wish I hadn't lost my train of thought, because I'm sure I was going somewhere fairly sensible with all of that. I wonder why there has never been, as far as I'm aware, never been a comeback on a supposedly competent operator. So it has a different name now. But if you get somebody into your house to fix your boiler, your gas boiler, anyone working with gas used to have to be Corgi registered. I'm sure there's a new name for it. I don't know what that new name is, but they used to have to be Corgi registered. So if something went wrong, basically partly you were relying upon their insurance, but you were assured that that person had been through rigorous testing to make sure they knew exactly what they were doing, because they were working with a dangerous substance, i.e. gas. If they screwed up, you could blow your house up. We don't have that. We have a competence card that says they've passed a test. But if somebody fresh out of school, fresh out of college, goes on site, hurts themselves, hurts someone else, kills someone else, pulls a building down on somebody else, I don't know, puts a bucket through the front window of an ADT and kills the guy sat in there, A, what was that card worth? And B, has there ever been any comeback on that? You, CSCS, MPAWS, CCDO, rather, all these training organizations, you sent this guy to us with a card that says he is competent, and he has just injured or killed someone. Gary says, you know us too well. Yes, Italian. Not looking forward to the build. No, I bet. It's the 28th of this month, and we're away to Turkey on the 29th for a week of R&R. Well deserved indeed. Well deserved indeed. Yeah, I'm going away end of July, very end of July into early August. We're going around the Med on a big cruise ship, and I'm looking forward to it enormously. I do have a trip coming up to Italy that I'm currently thrashing out with the European Demolition Association, which I'll keep you posted about. That in June, sort of middle of June or thereabouts. I will keep you posted on that. But yeah, competence cards, they worry me. They worry me a lot. Lots of things worry me, but they do worry me in particular. And I also wonder, just as a kind of the flip side of that, someone once said to me about simulators, excavator simulators. We were talking specifically about high reach excavator simulators for the demolition industry. And his concern, it was a guy called Paul Brown, was temporarily an NFDC president, should have been for longer, whole other story. But he said one of his concerns was that the simulators were very good, they very realistic and everything else. The problem with them was that if you did something wrong and your imaginary simulated machine fell over, or a building collapsed on you, or something went wrong, you just press a button and you start again. You don't get a start over option in real life. So I wonder, if you are a young person, not even a young person, if you are a person that has been through a training course on how to drive an excavator, a wheel loader, a dumper, a dozer, whatever it might be, you've been through the test, and somebody said, yep, there you go, there's your card, crack on. Does that give you a false sense of, what's the word, invincibility? Does that make you more confident than perhaps you should be? I wonder. Anyway, people, that will do us for today. I will do a recap based on today, because there's plenty to talk about. I didn't do one yesterday because I was picking my daughter up and just didn't get time to do it. So I will do one today. We're doing a bit of a weekend recap on LinkedIn over the weekend. And next week, yeah, I've got something I've been working on. The first 3 morning monologues of next week are all part of the same. I've written 5,000-6,000 words, I think, on the transfer from diesel to other fuel sources, and I've broken it down into 3 episodes plus an intro bit. We're going to do it as both a podcast, probably not with me speaking. We're also going to do it as a free downloadable book. All of that will be, there. You'll see. Is the Cruders your 60th birthday present? It kind of is. Yeah, it kind of is. It's my 60th and it's our 35th wedding anniversary. So we decided to combine the two. My birthday is in February. Our wedding anniversary is in May, and we don't go till July. But that was kind of the idea. But yeah, well spotted. Jim Turner says companies should put each potential employee through their own scrutiny before they employ them. If they aren't good enough, they don't get the job. I agree. And again, I don't think it would need to be a huge deal. As I said, I'm an idiot bystander, and I can spot a decent operator in minutes. I'm sure you guys could all spot it even more quickly than that. And even if you'd allowed their first day, how do they follow instructions? How do they interact with everyone else? Do they speak up when they need to speak up? Are they quiet when they need to be quiet? Do they do as they're told, or do they go off and do what they feel like doing? End of the first day, yeah, you need to iron out these bugs, but yeah, crack on. We're glad to have you as part of the team. Or, sorry, mate, you are a danger to us and to yourself. You need to go and find another job. Wouldn't be hard. Would not be hard at all. And let's be honest, we already do it. The number of times, Dan will tell you this probably more than anybody else. Number of times somebody will turn up, often a young person, they turn up, they're either too slow, a little bit green or whatever it might be. They're tolerated for a half day or a day, and then, no, on your bike, we'll get somebody else in. We're already doing it, but why don't we more formalize it and make sure that the people that are working alongside us, the people whose hands our lives potentially rest in, why aren't we making sure that they are absolutely up to the money, up to the job? There's no money to be made from a sensible system like that. And there you are, in a single sentence, explains precisely why we are where we are. As in all things, follow the money. There is millions being made providing little plastic cards that prove fuck all, and we're sticking with it. Hugely reassuring, isn't it? People, that is almost exactly 1 hour of your life that you will never get back. Thank you for your company. Thank you for all of your input. I will be back here again on Monday, 10 a.m. as always. I'll turn YouTube, LinkedIn, you know where to find it. It's all over there. As I say, I will do a recap of today's show as well. Go and have a look at that if you fancy it. Until then, everybody, have a fantastic weekend. I'll see you on Monday. Behave yourselves. And if there is somebody that's just arrived on site with a card that you've not seen before, maybe look out the side of your eye and think, are they? It might just save your life. See you Monday.